snow whipped across the frozen wasteland, stinging Jack's face as he trudged through the battlefield. The storm had passed hours ago, but the wind still howled between the shattered remains of alien war machines. Bodies both human and alien lay, half buried in the white drifts. Jack moved carefully, scanning for movement. Even after a battle ended, danger still lingered here. He stopped when he saw a figure kneeling in the snow ahead. At first, he thought it was another frozen corpse. But then her head lifted, and he froze. She wasn't human. Her skin was a rich, glowing violet, her long silver-white hair whipped by the wind. Sleek black battle armor hugged her frame, marked with glowing teal lines that pulsed faintly. Her eyes brilliant gold locked onto his, and in her hands she clutched a sword planted into the snow. Blood stained the blade's edge. Jack raised his rifle automatically. He had seen warriors like her before, fast, deadly, merciless. The kind who could cut down a squad in seconds. But this one didn't move to attack. She was breathing hard, her posture low, almost submissive. The snow swirled between them, and when she spoke, her voice was steady but low. "Don't kill me, human, I'll warm your bed." The words were accented, her tone serious yet strangely calm. Jack didn't lower his weapon. He stepped closer, keeping the barrel aimed at her chest. "Why should I trust you?" he asked. She didn't answer right away, only pulled the sword from the snow and let it fall to the ground beside her. Then she spread her hands slightly, showing they were empty. Her eyes never left his, but there was no challenge in them now. Only something that looked like survival. Jack's instincts screamed at him to end it. She was an enemy soldier. The war had turned men into killers for far less than this. But something in the way she held herself made him hesitate. She wasn't here to fight anymore. He glanced around. The wreckage of her side's war machines lay scattered across the ice, smoke still rising from twisted metal. She was the last one standing from her unit. That explained the desperation in her voice. The wind shifted, carrying the distant sound of engines. Jack knew patrols would be here soon. Human patrols. If they saw her alive, they'd shoot without question. He stepped back, lowering the rifle just slightly. "If I don't kill you now, you do exactly what I say," he told her. She gave a slow nod, her breath forming small clouds in the freezing air. "I follow," she said simply. He motioned for her to stand, and she rose gracefully despite the exhaustion in her movements. Up close, Jack could see faint burns on her armor, and the way her hands trembled slightly from the cold. She towered over him by a few inches, her presence commanding even in defeat. The blood on the snow between them was hers, and from enemies. She had fought before collapsing here. They moved together toward the ridge, Jack keeping a careful eye on her. She didn't try to run. When they reached the cover of the rocks, she glanced back at the battlefield, her expression unreadable. Jack caught her looking at him once, as if trying to measure him the same way he was measuring her. They were enemies in every way, but in this frozen wasteland, survival was stronger than loyalty to any flag. As they descended toward his outpost, Jack still didn't know if sparing her was the right choice. But deep inside, he knew one thing. For certain, this was not the last time her words would echo in his mind. Asterisk. The wind cut harder as they crossed the icy plain toward Jack's outpost. The alien warrior followed him without hesitation, her movements quiet but alert. Jack glanced back once, noting the steady way she stepped despite the cold. Her armor caught the pale sunlight, the teal lines glowing faintly against the endless white. She didn't speak, but her eyes missed nothing. Every sound, every movement in the distance made her ears twitch slightly. Jack's outpost was a small cluster of metal shelters built against the side of a frozen ridge. Smoke curled from a single chimney, and the thick doors were reinforced with scavenged plating. He approached the outer gate and keyed in the access code. The heavy locks clunked open, and they stepped inside the safety of the perimeter. She looked around slowly, her her gaze lingering on the mounted defenses and the solar arrays buried under layers of frost. Inside, the air was warmer. Jack removed his gloves and motioned for her to sit on a bench near the heater. She obeyed, lowering herself with controlled movements. The heat made faint steam rise from her armor. Jack set his rifle on the table but kept it within reach. He pulled off his helmet and drank from a metal flask, then passed it to her. She took it, sniffed the contents, and drank without hesitation. A faint hum of satisfaction escaped her as the warmth reached her. "You got a name?" Jack asked, leaning back in his chair. She paused before answering, as if deciding whether to share it. "Vera," she said finally. The name rolled off her tongue with a smooth foreign tone. Jack nodded once. "Jack." Her eyes studied him for a moment longer, then she gave a short nod in return. The silence between them was heavy, but not hostile. It was the kind of silence between two people measuring each other carefully. Jack brought out a small package of dried meat and placed it on the table. Vera reached for it, unwrapping it with precise fingers. She ate slowly, her eyes never leaving his. "You saved me," she said at last. "Why?" Jack shrugged. "Killing you wouldn't have changed the war, but maybe keeping you alive might." She tilted her head slightly, as if weighing his answer. "I keep my word," she said. "I do what you ask." Her voice carried no shame in making such a vow. It was a simple fact to her. The sound of distant engines rumbled faintly through the walls. Jack's head turned toward the door. Vera stiffened, setting the empty package aside. "Your people?" she asked. Jack nodded grimly. "They'll be looking for survivors. If they find you here, they won't ask questions." Vera rose to her feet, her hand brushing the hilt of her sword. Jack shook his head. "If you fight them, they'll bring more. We have to make them pass us by." She gave a slow nod, understanding the danger. Jack led her to the storage bay, where crates and tarps offered places to hide. She crouched behind a stack of supply boxes, her armor blending with the shadows. Jack moved to the door, peering through a narrow viewing slit. The patrol skimmers approached, their searchlights sweeping over the ice. He could hear the muffled shouts of the soldiers as they scanned the area. His hand tightened on the door latch, ready to shut it fast if they got too close. The skimmers slowed near the perimeter, but after a tense few minutes, they moved on, their engines fading into the distance. Jack exhaled slowly, lowering his shoulders. Vera stepped out from hiding, her gaze locked on him. "You risked for me again," she said. Jack met her eyes. "You're here now. That means your survival is my responsibility." Her lips curved into the faintest hint of a smile before she looked away toward the heater. Jack didn't know if that smile meant trust or something else entirely. But as the heat filled the room again, and the storm outside began to rise, he realized one thing: she wasn't going to leave anytime soon. The wind outside grew louder, rattling the metal walls of the outpost. Jack sat at the table, cleaning his rifle with steady hands. Across from him, Vera sat cross-legged near the heater, her eyes half closed but alert to every sound. The firelight cast soft reflections on her violet skin and made the teal lines in her armor glow brighter. It was the first time Jack had seen her without a weapon in her hand since they met. She spoke suddenly, breaking the quiet. "Your war we fight?" Jack glanced at her, surprised by the question. "We didn't start it," he said. "Your people landed on our colonies. We defended them." Vera's gaze didn't waver. "My people fight because they are told to fight. Orders come from above." "Same for you?" Jack didn't answer right away. He focused on reassembling the rifle before setting it aside. "Maybe," he admitted, "but I make my own choices when I can." She tilted her head slightly, studying his face. Vera shifted, leaning forward with her elbows on her knees. "You could have killed me. You did not. That choice, it changes something. Jack gave a short nod. Maybe for both of us. Her golden eyes held his for a moment longer before she looked away toward the storm outside. The silence that followed was not heavy like before. It carried a strange sense of understanding between them. The heater flickered, and Jack stood to check the fuel supply. As he refilled it, the faint hum of engines reached his ears again. Vera heard it too. She rose to her feet in one smooth motion, her expression sharpening. "Same patrols?" she asked. Jack listened closely. "No," he said. "Bigger engines, heavier sound." Her hand went to her sword, and she moved to the narrow viewing slit by the door. Through the slit, Jack saw shapes moving in the white haze, large tracked vehicles, not skimmers. They bore the markings of a Raider faction humans who answered to no one but themselves. They weren't after survivors. They were after supplies, and they would kill anyone in their way. Jack's jaw tightened. "They'll try to breach the gate," he said. Vera's grip on her sword tightened. "Then we stop them." There was no hesitation in her voice. They moved quickly. Jack checked the mounted turret above the gate, while Vera positioned herself in the shadows near the entrance. The storm masked the sound of their movements, but the rumble of the Raiders' machines grew louder. The first blast came suddenly, a shell hitting the outer wall, sending a shudder through the structure. Jack returned fire from the turret, sending bursts into the swirling snow. Vera waited, still impatient, until the first Raider burst. Through the gate, her blade flashed in the dim light, cutting him down before he could raise his weapon. She moved like a shadow, striking fast and vanishing between attacks. Jack fired at the others, forcing them to scatter. The fight was brutal and close. The storm made visibility poor, but inside the gate, every movement was sharp and clear. Vera's armor took a few hits, but she kept moving, her focus unbroken. When the last Raider fell, the only sounds left were the wind and their breathing. Jack climbed down from the turret, his boots crunching in the snow. Vera stood over one of the fallen, her blade dripping dark blood. She turned toward him, her expression unreadable but her eyes bright. "You fight well," she said simply. Jack gave a short nod. "So do you." It wasn't praise, it was recognition. They dragged the bodies outside the gate and secured the perimeter again. Inside, the warmth of the heater felt sharper after the cold and violence. Vera sat again, but this time closer to Jack's side of the table. "You protected me," she said quietly. Jack met her eyes. "You protected me first." For a long moment, neither looked away. The storm still raged outside, but inside the outpost, something stronger than the wind had begun to take hold. The storm eased by morning, leaving the world outside covered in a fresh layer of snow. Jack stood at the viewing slit, scanning the white horizon for any signs of movement. The battle from the night before had left dents in the outer gate and fresh scorch marks on the walls. He made a mental note to repair them later. Behind him, Vera moved silently, checking the edge of her blade with a focused expression. When she spoke, her voice was steady. "Raider groups will tell others. They will come again." Jack didn't turn from the slit. "I know. That's why we'll be ready." She sheathed her sword and stepped closer. "You say we now. Before, you spoke only for yourself." Jack met her gaze briefly. "Last night changed things." She didn't smile, but her eyes softened slightly. At his words, they spent the morning reinforcing the gate and repositioning supply crates as barricades. Vera worked with precision, moving heavy objects with ease despite the cold. Jack noticed how she adjusted the defenses not only for human fighting styles, but also for her own speed and reach. When he questioned a change she made, she explained it clearly, her tone patient. It was the first time he realized she wasn't just a skilled fighter. She understood tactics on a deeper level. By midday, the wind had shifted, carrying a faint scent of smoke. Vera stopped what she was doing and sniffed the air. "Not your people," she said. Jack nodded grimly. Another raider band, maybe closer this time. They returned inside to prepare. Jack loaded his rifle while Vera checked the straps of her armor. The cub-like warmth of the heater was soon replaced by the tension of waiting. Neither spoke much, but the unspoken understanding between them was strong. The sound came first. A low mechanical grind growing louder. Jack climbed to the turret again, his breath clouding in the freezing air. Vera took her place at the gate, sword ready. The first shape emerged from the white, a large armored raider vehicle pushing through the drifts. Behind it came several smaller ones, fanning out to encircle the outpost. Jack's heart pounded, but his hand stayed steady on the turrets. Controls. When the lead vehicle opened fire, Jack answered with a burst from the turret, forcing it to veer off course. Raiders poured out from the smaller vehicles, their weapons flashing. Vera was already moving, her armor a blur against the snow. She cut down the first attacker before he could fire, spinning to meet the second. Jack provided cover fire, picking off targets that tried to flank her. The battle was fast and chaotic, the clash of steel and gunfire mixing with the roar of engines. At one point, a raider broke through toward the inner gate. Jack saw him too late, but Vera didn't. She lunged across the snow, tackling the raider and driving him back into the drifts. Her blade struck once, clean and final. She didn't pause before turning to face the next threat. Jack felt a surge of respect. Her focus never wavered, even when the odds tilted dangerously. After several minutes of fighting, the raiders began to retreat, dragging their wounded back to the vehicles. Jack fired a final shot that shattered the wheel of one skimmer, sending it spinning into the snow. The others sped away, their engines fading into the distance. Vera stood in the center of the battlefield, her breath visible in the cold air, her blade still in hand. Jack climbed down from the turret and approached her. "We held them," he said. She nodded once, her expression unreadable but her eyes bright. They returned inside, closing the gate behind them. The heater's warmth wrapped around them again, chasing away the chill of the fight. Vera set her sword aside and sat across from Jack. "You fight like one of my kind," she said. Jack smirked faintly. "And you fight like someone I want on my side." She leaned back slightly, studying him without speaking. The silence felt different, now less like a pause between strangers and more like the calm after a shared victory. The day after the second raid, the air was unusually still. The sky above the frozen wasteland was clear, the sun casting long blue shadows across the snow. Jack stood at the outer gate, surveying the repairs they had made. Vera joined him quietly, her armor freshly cleaned, the teal lines along it glowing in the morning light. The cub-like comfort of the heater inside called to them both. But for now, the silence outside was worth holding on to. "You could leave now," Jack said without looking at her. "Storm's gone. Tracks from the raiders could lead you to your people." Vera stayed beside him, her eyes on the distant horizon. "I could," she said. "But I will not." Jack finally turned toward her. "Why?" She met his gaze without hesitation. "Because I gave my word. I stay until you no longer need me." The weight in her voice left no room for doubt. They returned inside, preparing a simple meal from what supplies remained. The warmth of the heater spread through the room, making the cold outside seem far away. Vera sat across from Jack, tearing a piece of bread and handing half to him. "In my people's way," she said, "sharing food means trust." Jack accepted it without a word, eating slowly as her golden eyes watched him. The silence between them felt steady now, like an agreement that didn't need to be spoken. By midday, the faint hum of engines broke the calm. Jack and Vera moved to the viewing slit together. This time it wasn't raiders. A column of human soldiers advanced toward the outpost, their armored vehicles cutting through the snow with ease. Jack's chest tightened. "They'll take one. Look at you and pull the trigger," he said. Vera's expression didn't change. "Then we stand together." She reached for her sword while Jack grabbed his rifle. The soldiers dismounted and spread out, their leader raising a hand in greeting. But his eyes were sharp as they fell on Vera. "Step aside, Jack," he called out. "That alien is wanted for the deaths of 40 human troops. You know what we're here for." Jack's jaw clenched. "She's under my protection," he said firmly. The soldiers shifted uneasily, fingers on their triggers. The leader's voice hardened. "You can't protect her from all of us." Jack raised his rifle, his voice steady. "Try me." For a moment, no one moved. The cold air between them seemed to hold its breath. Then, slowly, the leader lowered his weapon. "You've gone soft, Jack," he said, turning back toward the vehicles. "She's your problem now." Without another word, the soldiers remounted and drove away, their engines fading into the distance. Jack lowered his rifle and let out a slow breath. Vera sheathed her sword and stepped closer. "You risked everything," she said quietly. Jack shrugged. "You've saved my life more than once. I'm not letting them take you." For the first time since they met, she smiled openly. It wasn't the faint, guarded curve of her lips from before. It was real, and it reached her eyes. "Then my word is stronger," she said. "I stay with you." The heater hummed softly in the background as they stood in the center of the room, the snow light spilling in through the narrow window. That night, the outpost was calm. Jack sat at the table, repairing a piece of equipment, while Vera sharpened her blade nearby. The cub warmth of the heater filled the space, but it wasn't just the heat that made it feel safe. It was the knowledge that, in a world where survival meant trusting no one, they had chosen to trust each other. Whatever came next, raiders, soldiers, storms, they would face it together, outside. The frozen wasteland stretched endlessly under the stars. Inside, the unlikely alliance between a human and an alien warrior had become something neither of them could have predicted. They were no longer enemies, no longer strangers. In this cold, brutal world, they had found something worth keeping alive.